Oh, it's my takeaway for this week. And you know, I can't sit still. I'm gonna have to actually make a fakeaway myself. This week, we've got the infamous Wagamama's katsu chicken curry and rice. So let's take a look at it and see what it's like. This isn't usually something that I would order, but I know that it's really, really popular. And a lot of people talk about this katsu curry. Classic katsu curry sauce. Should be relatively thick so that it just sits on top of the rice. And then we've got our crispy panko chicken. I don't think there's really much sort of seasoning or marinade on there. Maybe a little bit, pinch of salt and pepper. But it's the panko breadcrumbs that really makes it nice and crisp. And then we've got that classic ladle shape there of the rice. Got some steamed Japanese rice there. I think it comes with a salad as well, but we're going to focus mainly on the curry. This is brought to you by our Patreon subscribers, so thank you guys. And if you aren't a subscriber to our Patreon channel already, then get over there and you can make suggestions for our next videos. So I'm going to actually try some first so I can try and get as close to their dish as possible. But of course it is home cooked, so I'm going to add my own spin on this. A good bit of that chicken, dip it into that katsu sauce. So we've got that curry powder flavour, definitely a bit of sweetness in there, so I think it's going to come from coconut milk. And then it's about balancing that flavour, the perfect balance of flavour, texture and colour. That's what we're looking for any type of Asian cooking. This one is easy. So as I was saying, the curry sauce definitely starts with a base of spices. I've got some Madras curry powder here, a little bit of chili powder, some turmeric for that extra yellow. There's already turmeric in the curry powder, but just to bring out that yellow flavour, or yellow colour, sorry. And then we've got some garam masala here, which may or may not be in the Wagamama version, but I'm going to put it in mine. And I've got some bay leaves that will boil through into the sauce. On top of that, I've got a base of some onion and garlic. I'm going to slice that through. So it can just be quite sort of roughly chopped. Garlic, same again, it doesn't need to be too sort of definitive. Just a rough chop. And then the actual sort of creaminess, that creamy texture, I'm pretty sure comes from your coconut milk, because it's got that natural sweetness. To go with that sweetness, I've got some brown sugar to accentuate that sweetness, and then a bit of light soy and some salt to season the sauce. I'll use some chicken stock to thin it out a little as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is sort of soften my onions and my garlic. They're all sort of ground up powder spices here, apart from the bay leaf, which I'll take out before I blitz. So we want to get these nice and soft first. So I don't mind if your onions brown a little bit, but you don't want them to go really brown. And it takes about sort of 5-6 minutes to get to this stage on a low to medium heat. At this point, I'm going to start to add in my spices. My bay leaf can go in, and then curry powder is the main flavour for this. So a couple of tablespoons of curry powder. I quite like a little bit of extra spice, so chili powder, about a teaspoon of chili powder and half a teaspoon of turmeric. I'll leave the garam masala for later. Give that a good mix in. It's already starting to smell like that katsu with that curry powder just hitting the base of that pan straight away. And those powdered spices don't take long on the heat at all. So we're going to start to add in your liquid now. I've got coconut milk here, and much like making a sort of Thai green curry, I'm just hitting the heat up a little to medium heat. I'm going to add a bit of coconut milk at a time, and that's going to sort of lift all the flavour off the bottom of the pan. Just give that a good scrape. Still on a medium heat here, just scraping as I go. And every time, sort of in between adding more coconut milk, you want to let that curry sauce come to a boil. Bring that to a boil again. Have a sip of tea. And then add a bit more coconut milk. At the moment, it's just got the spiciness and the sweetness from the coconut milk, but there's no real sort of savoury flavour in there. So with the heat up, I'm going to add a whole load of chicken stock. That's going to make this quite thin, but you'll get a deep sort of base savoury boiling into the curry. Now, ideally, you want to let that simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes, allow all those spices to get into the flavour of the actual sauce, and then I'm going to season it up. First off, a little bit of salt. Just got some sea salt here. Some light soy. And then a bit of sugar. I'm just going to go for about half a teaspoon of sugar first, give that mix through, and that should accentuate the flavour of the coconut milk. So I'm just going to fish these bay leaves out, just because they don't blitz so well. And then just before blitzing, just throw that garam masala in there. And now add a bit more spice to it. I'm not going to add any more seasoning to it. It's got a perfect sort of sweet, salty balance. So I've got my curry sauce. My curry sauce is nice and smooth now. It's still a little on the thin side, so we've got to thicken that up with a little bit of corn flour paste. I don't like mine too gloopy, so I'll only use a little bit of this corn flour paste. Got some water in one ramekin here, a couple of teaspoons of corn flour. Just make that paste up. I probably won't actually use all of this paste. We'll go a couple of spoons at a time whilst it's on the boil. So 1, 2, give that a stir. You do need to stir this whilst it's on the boil, so it allows that corn flour to sort of sit into the curry sauce and thicken it up properly. You can see already what that's done. Now I might try 1 more teaspoon, but no more than that. That's a good texture. You know, especially at this point, if I want to thicken it any more later on, I can, but I'm quite happy with that. And then onto your panko breadcrumbs for your crispy chicken. So your chicken breast, they're kind of like pankoed escallops of chicken. You just want to cut them in half, really. Just give them a hit with your cleaver to flatten them out. And then we're going to season this flour here. It's just plain flour. I've got a bit of white pepper, some sea salt, and then a little pinch of that brown sugar. Just mix that around nicely. And then what the French call the pané, which is basically breadcrumbing. So we've got your chicken pieces into the flour first, and then your egg, and then your breadcrumbs. Turn that over, breadcrumb the other side. I just like to press in a little to make sure it collects up enough breadcrumb on both sides. So I'll take those 3 pieces now across, and I've got my frying oil here. That's just vegetable oil. So when you're deep frying, anything wooden tells you the right temperature. I do this in a lot of our videos when you're deep frying. It's always good to be safe. And that's fizzing straight away, my wooden chopstick, so I know that that's around 180 degrees C. I'm actually going to bring that heat down a little to sort of medium heat now, because I don't want your breadcrumbs to sort of brown too quickly. I want to make sure that each piece of chicken cooks through nicely. My chicken breast, fill it straight in. And I can tell that's a good temperature because it's bubbling away, but not too vigorously. just enough space there for my 3 chicken breasts. You can see the colour on that already. And because I've cut them into relatively thin pieces, it shouldn't take too long. We should, you know, you're talking about sort of 4 to 5 minutes of cooking time. And I've actually just turned the heat down again to a low heat now because it's had that initial seal of hot oil around each piece of chicken. And I just want that chicken to cook through, stay succulent, but make sure it's well cooked. So you can see now my pieces of chicken are all floating at the top of the oil. Once it starts to float, give it about a minute and then your chicken's ready. It's floating because there's sort of pockets of air between this sort of fillets of chicken or the meat and that fibre. So that is ready now. You don't want to overcook this, you want to keep it nice and succulent. Look at that perfect golden brown. Last but not least, I've got my rice, my chicken, my curry. I just got to compile it all. So I've got my Japanese rice that's steamed already. I don't have that Wagamama ladle shape, but we do have a ladle. Not far off, to be honest. Look at that. My chicken just sliced at a slight angle. Super crispy. Straight over the top there. And then my curry sauce, I'll put some on this side. And you can see mine's definitely a little thinner than the curry sauce from the takeaway. I quite like to drizzle or pour a little over the edge there, keeping that nice and crispy. Let's do the same. You can see the thickness of the takeaway curry sauce is a lot thicker than mine there. That's just my preference. So I've got my takeaway katsu curry and rice and my very own fakeaway katsu curry. I'm going to dig in now. Now I'm not going to lie, whilst filming this has gone a little cold, so perhaps it's not a perfectly fair test, but not bad altogether. I like it. Sauce slightly on the gloopy side for me. This is the homemade one, the homemade fakeaway. I mean, I'm going to say it, I am the chef, and that is definitely my preference. I've got a nicer balance of sweet, savoury. And of course, because it hasn't been sitting there for as long, and the chicken's just come straight out of the fryer, that is delicious. My fakeaway for my own takeaway, or one of the most popular takeaway dishes and restaurant dishes around, katsu chicken curry. Don't forget, as with all of these fakeaway videos on our School Wok channel, this is brought to you by our Patreon subscribers, so thank you guys. And if you aren't a subscriber to our Patreon channel already, then get over there and you can make suggestions for our next videos. What a lovely cup of tea. Oh, it's so warm on this cold winter's day.